Thanks for tuning in, and welcome to the Good Earth Natural Food Company's weekly radio show, Another Day of Living, where the conversations are all about eating well, living well, and feeling good. And now, here's your host, Alex Litwack.
It's a beautiful day in the neighborhood, and with me is Sam Blandina, corrective exercise specialist. Hi, Sam.
Alex, how you doing?
I am doing well. You are fit, you are tan, you look ready to get out there and do something on this gorgeous day. What's our topic?
I want to talk today a little bit about, well, actually quite a bit about what flexibility and range of motion means, and I would say the misconceptions, but there's often people think when they hear the word, I need to be more flexible, or they hear flexibility, they think, well, I need to stretch more, I need to do this more, and there's a lot of truth to that. I practiced yoga for years, and it's helped my range of motion and flexibility, but there's also some things we need to think about when we're doing stretching too. First thing I'm going to talk about is how when we're already mobile, really mobile in certain muscles in our body, we don't need to stretch them more if they're already having what they call a normal length-tension relationship. For example, if I could bend over and touch my toes, I have pretty normal hamstring length. Or if I can lay on my back and take one leg straight up and one leg straight down, and I can bring my leg to straight up and down, 90-degree angle, I have normal hamstring stretchability. I don't need to stretch my hamstrings more.
You use the expression length-tension relationship. What is that?
That's a really good question. A length-tension relationship is the muscle's length and the tension in the muscle when it's in the linked position. There's a more relaxed position in the muscle, and then there's a more tensioned position in the muscle, depending on what's going on, how it's moving, how you're moving. So when I say the length-tension relationship, it's like how does it have a normal length-tension relationship? In other words, when you go into stretch into the belly, the muscle is able to stabilize it, or does it overstretch? Okay, so there's a relationship between the tension in the muscle and the length in the muscle. So if you have if you're real tense in a muscle, it's going to be maybe hard to let it lengthen, right? That kind of makes sense. If you're too lax in a muscle, it's going to make it hard to contract a little bit. So you have these two different types of contractions. An eccentric contraction, which is more of a stretching contraction, than a concentric contraction. So when you think in terms of that, if I do a bicep curl, the bicep itself is getting tighter and smaller. The tricep is a countering muscle, or it's a what they call an agonist-antagonist relationship. So this muscle is lengthening my tricep as I do a bicep curl, and my tricep is tightening. So when you go lower it, the opposite happens. You have an eccentric contraction in the bicep and a concentric contraction in the tricep. So that's how muscles work in conjunction. One has to balance out the other. Otherwise, it would just keep going one way. It doesn't have anything to break it, if you will.
And you would hyperextend.
You could hyperextend, exactly. So there's a control aspect. So like if you're lifting something and lowering something, there's two phases to the lift. It's not just the push it overhead or whatever. It's the lowering phase that's important too. So I'm getting a little off track here as far as the flexibility part, but it's related to what we're going to get into in a little bit here. So what I see often is people keep stretching and stretching and stretching muscles that are already lengthy, and they're already at a normal length. So I see, and this is often the case with women, they have long hamstrings, they lay on the floor, they start stretching them out before they run or whatever. They don't really need to do that. Because what will happen is if you keep attacking and wanting to lengthen a muscle that already has a normal length, it'll want to tighten down, because your body will want to protect itself. So you can overstretch to the point where your body's going to feel, that muscle's always tight. I wonder why. Because it's a negative response because you're overstretching.
How do you know if you're overstretching?
It's a good point. Well, there's range of motion tests that you can do. You can see if people have normal range of motion. You can clearly see it in people's movements. They have a lack of mobility in the ankles or the knees or the hips. They can't do things really well because those don't allow them to. So let's get back to the stretching thing. There's real benefits to stretching, but there's different types of stretching. There's static stretching. There's more dynamic stretching. There's active, isolated stretching. But you really, when you think in terms of really building mobility in the body, it's not always all about the muscles. It's about building mobility in the joints. So if you don't have good mobility or range of motion in your joints, you can potentially not move well. like can overload other areas of the body. If you don't move well in your shoulders, for example, you're going to have to compensate somewhere else. So having good normal mobility in your shoulder girdle, in your spine, in your hips, in your legs, etc., your ankle joints, those are where real flexibility comes from, if you will, or real ability to move in deep ranges of motion. So what we're talking about here is when you look at joints, what are joints? Joints are not muscles. Okay, there is tissue in them, but there's ligaments and tendons. And ligaments and tendons don't stretch a lot. They're not designed to. They're designed to cross the joint, stabilize the joint, and help it to stay in position when it's under load or you're moving dynamically. The idea is when you do things like squat deeply, it helps to increase the range of motion. They found that in studies of Olympic power lifters, they had every bit of range of motion as your gymnasts because of the fact that they do these deep range of motions in these lifts. So it creates good mobility in their body. Of course, they have to be careful. The form has to be good. But the more you do stuff like that, the more you do this type of work, this dynamic mobility type of work, as opposed to thinking of stretching. I just got to lay down and stretch out or whatever. Mobility is what we're looking at more. And that has a relation to some of the stuff we've talked about before. Fascial trains, muscular tension. There could be anatomical issues where people have a hip that was not formed properly when they were born. That's not compensatory, that's anatomical. You can't change that. So there might have to be some way you work around that or compensate functionally in a movement pattern for a person that has an anatomical dysfunction.
It sounds like everyone needs to be evaluated.
Alex, if we're not assessing, we're guessing. So that's very, in almost anything that we do, when we look at somebody in the eye and we want to get to know them as a person, there's a relationship that we're building, and we're trying to look into them, and you want them to look into you. That's the idea anyway. It doesn't always work that way in relationships, as we well know, but that's the true idea that we'd like to have in relationships. It's no different than anything else that we do. We want to be able to look into seeing people, look at people, see them move, and be able to evaluate them.
I love that expression, if we're not assessing, we're guessing. And it's worth it to figure out what are we each doing that works well for our bodies and what are we doing that might be overdoing it. Because every time we overdo it, we run the risk of getting injured.
We do, and there's an inherent risk in almost anything, even going out and taking a walk, Alex. There's an inherent risk, so we don't want to codify ourselves. We have to go out there and be in this world. But we do want to be aware, and mindfulness and body awareness is part of keeping ourselves protected to some degree.
Always good information, always important to take care of ourselves. Thanks for being on the show.
Peace.
Are you looking to improve your health? Do you want fresh, organic, GMO-free, or allergy-friendly foods? How about natural beauty products and healthy shoes? Just one store has it all with over 20,000 items at discount prices. The Good Earth Natural Food Company is the ultimate health food store experience. Talk to any of our knowledgeable staff and get just what you need to feel your best. We're open 7 days a week, Monday through Saturday, 9 a.m. to 8 p.m., and Sundays, 11 to 6 p.m. Or check us out online at good-earth.com.
Today I'm at the offices of Julie Seward-Lazaraton. She has a company called Living Through Wellness, and she is certified in so many things I don't even know where to start. Welcome, Julie.
Thank you.
The first thing we're going to speak about today is Reiki. You are a certified Reiki master. Can you tell me what that means and talk a little bit about Reiki?
Sure. Reiki is a Japanese style of stress reduction and energy work that helps unblock energy blocks throughout the body. But when you decide to become a Reiki master, you're deciding on more than just a tool that you're using for other people. You're really embarking on your own path of how to live life differently, without worry, with love for others. And there are many other things that as a Reiki master you strive to work, letting go of your own blocks. So as you progress on your personal trip then you're able to use Reiki to help other people let go of some of their energy blocks. A lot of times, a session, the practitioner will have you either be on a massage table or perhaps in a chair. And many times, a Reiki practitioner will not even touch the body. They're working on the energy that is coming from the body.
Do you see the energy?
Some people do, and some people don't. I personally do see energy as it's moved, or if it's blocked, or if it's kind of needing attention. Other people might feel, they'll hold their hands over a person's body and they might feel heat or tingling that calls them to hold their hands over that spot for just however long until that feeling goes away. It started in the early 1900s, and Dr. Mikao Yusi is credited with bringing it about.
How does someone get trained in moving energy?
Well, there are several trainings, but in regard to Reiki, it's still kind of old style. You find a Reiki master, and they will apprentice you. They take you through either 3 or 4 trainings, depends on how they were trained. And they take you through the trainings and they help you learn how to use it.
How long does a Reiki session last?
There again, it depends on the person and what the client wants. Many times I'll do Reiki until the body says enough, and I will stop at that point unless the person really requests, I want 30 minutes, or I want 40 minutes, or I want an hour. Usually they're not much over an hour.
Can you give me an example of why someone would want to do Reiki? What are the issues that they're coming to you with?
Many are like massage. We're familiar with massage now. There was a time when we weren't, but we go to a massage therapist often for the opportunity to relax, to let go of stress, and Reiki is very similar in that as the energy moves, the body relaxes. And we want to be relaxed in any way, shape, or form that we can, because I know a statistic I heard recently is 85% of our doctor visits are because of stress-related issues that are in our environment or in our body. So whether it is massage or Reiki or reflexology or quantum touch, those are or healing touch. Anything that can bring reduction of stress to the body is beneficial in healing. Now, a lot of times somebody will be in the chair and they won't feel anything other than that they just get very relaxed and warm, perhaps. Other times people will say, I feel something moving in my arm, or I feel energy moving in my knee. Or they'll get up and go, my goodness, I feel so much lighter. And it's because through this energy releasing called Reiki, people can let go of the energetic baggage they're carrying.
Well, we've all got baggage, that's for sure.
We sure do.
Yes. Julie, you do something else that I've never heard of, and it's called Voice BioAnalysis. Can you tell me about that?
Sure. Voice BioAnalysis was introduced to me back in 2007. And it's a software program designed by a naturopathic doctor who felt that sometimes kinesiology can be influenced by the practitioner's view. That's not to say that kinesiology can't be done well. It can by many people. But this took science and said there is vibration to each and every cell. And so when cells vibrate in a certain way, they're balanced. When they vibrate in another way, they might be imbalanced. And this takes a software program. The person would speak into a microphone, and frequencies that are inaudible, because we all know that, for instance, when a piano key is struck, there is not just that note, but there are overtones, notes that exist beyond that the ear might not pick up. So this software program picks up those vibrations as well and kind of gives a chart, so you start to see where the body's out of balance. Then we can start to say, instead of taking a ton of different supplements or changing the diet in a certain way that might not actually bring benefit, now we can see where the imbalance lies, and we can start to say, we need to change the diet this way. We need to maybe think about these supplements but let these go. So it gives you a much more targeted opportunity to see your wellness. The theory is that the body will reflect a vibrational change a year to maybe 2 years before a physical change occurs. So if we catch it in the vibrational form or the energetic form while we're working on our wellness, then we have an opportunity to make changes to create balance in our life. There again, that energetic balance and stress reduction and good diet habits that are appropriate for that unique body.
What is a client speaking into the mic? I mean, are you having them say certain sentences? Are you having them sing a song?
Oh, that's a good question. Actually, there are 3 questions that are answered. The first question is kind of a very succinct sort of question. I might ask, describe the inside of a house without using color and without using possessive nouns like his chair or her chair or Bob's chair. So it's just a very static blank statement. So there's a door, there's a car, there's a chair, there's a fireplace. It's that sort of thing. So it's very bland. That kind of gives us a baseline without emotion, because color brings about emotion. Possessiveness brings about emotion. Well, we want to take that out. Then the next question is usually a question about stress. So we have them talk about a stressor in their life. And then the third question is more of where are you in 5 years? How do you see your life? To see if you can connect with the direction you're going in. And then the software does its thing and puts out a pattern, and you begin to see if there are imbalances that exist or not.
I'm assuming you got into this because you tried Voice BioAnalysis on yourself and it helped you.
Yes. When I did my first Voice BioAnalysis in training, the imbalance showed up that showed me that I had a need to let go of gluten in my life, and it changed my digestive health tremendously. And up until that time, I had only been told, well, you have heartburn, so here's medication. So this was the first time where I was given information that said, hey, if you change your diet this way, you won't have those symptoms anymore. And for me, it really worked. And likewise, I'm a former vocal performance major. But one of the things that happened was I'd always have this break in a certain area in my voice. And I would struggle with that. And it would, I'd work and exercise to try to smooth it over. When I did the Voice Bio, I realized that I probably needed a certain supplement to help the throat area. And so I did that. And lo and behold, after about 6 weeks on that supplement, I noticed that my break was gone when I was singing.
It sounds fascinating that someone could create that kind of software that relates to the vibrational quality in your voice and that it picks up on something before you may even notice that there's a problem.
Well, and I think that's the direction a lot of things are taking, because we hear a lot of biofeedback, and this is in that line. But Dr. Kay Thompson is the naturopathic doctor who designed this program and this software, and she's done a lot of research into the vibration of cells and organs and tissues and things, and where they vibrate in a healthy way and where they don't vibrate in a healthy way. And she's doing a lot of research as well on supplements and their vibration so that you can bring it together. We look at flower essences are a large part of vibrational medicine that are out there for health food stores to offer. And so that's that same sort of theory. There's the vibration. You correct the vibration that's out of balance. It eventually impacts the physical.
And the third thing that I wanted to talk with you about today is the Quiet Healing Retreat that you have organized that's happening in September. So let's start with the first Quiet Healing Retreat that you did.
And is this the point where I should stay very quiet? Or it's interesting. Last year in October was our first Quiet Healing Retreat here in Indianapolis. And it kind of came about when I had told a client of mine that I was going to take a personal quiet retreat of silence. And she chimed in and said, if you do that, I'll come. And we worked on it last year. We had a very small group, but it was a great learning experience. And everybody kind of gets a little uncomfortable about being quiet for what really turns out to be about close to 2 days.
I don't think you'll be extending an invitation to me.
It's not as scary as it sounds. So what we do is we ask people to take as much of a vow of silence as they can throughout the time frame. There's still a little bit of interaction here and there, because when we go into silence, there again, it's a very healing thing, because a lot of those voices, all of a sudden, that's all we can hear because we've gone quiet. And that means, I've asked people to step away from their TV, away from their cell phone, away from their computer. And that is very daunting in today's society. It's very hard for people to step away from those things. But what happens is usually at the end of the weekend, they're like, how'd it go by so quickly? I can't believe it. So for this year, we are having the retreat. We moved it up a weekend, so it is the last full weekend of September, the 25th through the 27th. We're hosting it out at in Richmond, Indiana, at the Quaker Hill Conference Center. And the goal is for people, again, to come and have that opportunity to disconnect, to be very mindful. Again, we will have a labyrinth, reflexology, Reiki, guided meditation. But this year we've added a couple new things. We've added massage. People really asked for that last year. We are adding a class that is called Soulful Breath Work, which is really a focus on breathing. We're having a special class called Organic Movement, which is connecting into your body and the way it needs to move to let go of things and let go of stress. So those are some new things we've added this year. We always pay attention to diet and special diet requests. We try to keep the diet very simple throughout the weekend. Most importantly, this year, we're excited. We have 16 rooms where people, once they enter their room, they will be in the room by themselves. When people tend to share rooms, they tend to talk. And we really do want them to hear those voices inside so they can start addressing them. We really do want them to disconnect from a very fast-paced life and remember that in doing so, they're bringing good things to their body.
What's the cost for this retreat?
Well, the basic package is $315, and then you can add the number of yoga classes or classes that you would like. You can add how much Reiki massage you want to add. Reflexology does come as the base with the base program. And so the total, if you're I want to do it all, you're looking at $455.
It sounds like a marvelous weekend.
It is, and it's very moving spiritually, and people tend to really come away from it going, my goodness, I want more of this. So it's, and we try to help people have tools at the end of the weekend that they can take into their weekly life, maintain some sort of sense of mindfulness about their life.
Julie, if someone is interested in contacting you, whether it be for Reiki, reflexology, voice bioanalysis, or they have an interest in the Quiet Healing Retreat, what's the best way to reach you?
Go to my website, livingthroughwellness.com, and they're welcome to call me. I always welcome calls at 317-430-7923.
Thank you so much for being a part of the show.
Thank you so much for having me.
But Oz never did give nothing to the Tin Man that he didn't already have. And cause never was the reason for the evening or the Tropic of Sir Galahad. So please believe in me when I say I'm spinning round, 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 round. Smoke, glass, stain, bright color, image going down, 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 down. Soap, sud, green, light bulb.
And now a little commentary from Ed Wenck.
Oh, children of the last century, let me tell you something about the decade in which I became of age and independent, the 1980s. The 80s were, well, mostly horrible. There was a lot of big hair and shoulder pads and greed and cocaine. I think the drugs were a direct cause of the shoulder pads, actually. What sober person dresses like an NFL lineman to go to a club? The 80s brought us the most depressing music made by synthesizers ever. The 80s brought us the golden age of Reagan and Gordon Gekko and other fictions. Sure, some damn fine movies were released in the 1980s, from Raging Bull to Do the Right Thing. Star Wars, of course, continued. Back to the Future started up. But cell phones were still for the very rich. Tinny compact discs began to replace vinyl and cassettes. Nirvana got together in 1987, but they didn't find Dave Grohl until 1990. But there was one consistently awesome thing about the 80s, the funny papers. The Far Side, Calvin and Hobbes, Bloom County, all started in the 80s. All three strips, in their initial versions, wound up running for anywhere from 10 to 15 years. Bloom County stopped running in 1989 as a daily strip. Berkeley breaded, the dude responsible, teased us with the Sunday strips Outland and Opus. And then suddenly, in the middle of the July rains of 2015, something began popping up in everybody's Facebook feeds. Bloom County had come back. It's now on Facebook every single day. Do you know what this feels like? It feels like Christmas when you're 6. It feels like a brand new boogie board on a beautiful wave. It feels like getting your 27-year-old body back. It feels like a beautiful woman winking at you. It's all those things that make you feel younger and fresher and smarter and happier. Remember when your bucket of stamina was bigger than your bucket of regrets? Remember when every pal, human and animal, seemed like they'd live forever? Remember that time in your life? Seriously, that is how great this feels. It's like waking up with a full head of hair and an unspoiled liver. Those are things I'll never get back, but somehow a tiny slice of my experience on this little rock that had lain dormant for 25 years has reappeared. I know there's no fountain of youth, but Berkeley, you've come close with this move. Thank you, man.
That's our show. Next week, it's Bob and Rudy with another day of music. Good Earth's 44th anniversary party is coming up on Sunday, September the 13th. Music, food, and great deals. Hope you'll join us. Thanks so much for tuning in. This is Alex Litwack. Have a great week.
The happiest half hour of your day has been brought to you by the Good Earth Natural Food Company, keeping Indy healthy since 1971.